Today's video is the second installment in the new video series, Why? Is it a masterpiece? Explore why The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is so admired, and we're going to tell you why The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is such a great masterpiece. Like the video of the previous part of the series, which examined the reasons for the masterpiece of BioShock, I paid about The Witcher 3 when I think of the first reason that makes the game a masterpiece: story, narrative, character formation, and the role of decisions in determining the fate of the story. The first things that come to mind, and I believe if other parts of the game are extraordinary, the main reason is that it is on the base very solid ride of the story and the characters that the gamer deeply connects with. Undoubtedly, one of the most important pillars of The Witcher 3's success is its extraordinary characters and deep and multi-layered story, which has brought the decision and choice factor into the best way to personalize and form complex characters. Of course, we all ask ourselves questions again and again in our lives about being good and bad, and I wish it was always as simple as choosing between good and bad absolutely, but in reality, it isn't. A gray world is surrounded by gray people, making it harder for us to make choices every time. Absolute good and evil have gradually become a general concept, and we will only find them in ideologies. Sometimes in life, we don't really know which is good or what's bad, but we have to make choices, and not just once, but we have to make choices for as long as we live and lose something else in exchange for a series of things. In fact, decision, choice, sequel, reward, and punishment are concepts that man recognizes from the moment he distinguishes good from evil, values from anti-value, norm from disorder, and who are with us until we close our eyes from the world. All of our destiny, our personality, and the image we leave behind have all been passed through the filter of our choices and decisions, and what we are is the result of these decisions. Will we be rewarded or punished? Was the decision I made right? It is all these that shape our character, and in The Witcher 3, it is our decisions that open up the different dimensions and layers of the different and unique characters of this series to us, and cause us to face their deep and multi-layered characterization every time. Imagine that a game could convey the same stress that we might have in some of our real-life decisions. It's certainly a very difficult task, and there are very few titles that can convey that feeling to us and cause us to put down the controller and think long on the decision we want to make. Titles that can make us feel this are usually masterpieces, and of course often a masterpiece in the style of role-playing, because choosing and facing its consequences is one of the properties of role-playing games, and one of the main factors that many gamers do not consider this style comparable to any other style. There is a sense of life in this genre, and it must be stay on, we decided. It is true that choice, especially in today's world full of deceitful elements, is very difficult. But it is also clear that choice brings with it a word that is perhaps the most important human need in today's societies: freedom. When we have a choice, we are free to choose what is most in line with our values, and no matter how hard the choice may be, the sense of freedom is joyful. Freedom to choose the path, freedom of expression, or any other kind of freedom. Now, if we want to connect this topic to our favorite world, the video game, it should be said that the joyous sense of freedom that lies deep in our choices, role-playing titles, or any other style in which choice and reward is very sweet and lovely for us gamers. When we see that outside of a completely scripted process, we have the right to choose, and the continuation of the game will proceed according to our decision, we feel a sense of pleasure and pride, and, of course, freedom. As if the creator of the game had made it for us and respected us so much that it made his job much harder, but several layers and different paths it was designed to make us enjoy it more. This is exactly Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a game full of powerful decisions based on your choices and consequences. Often gray decisions that force you to think and ultimately lead to several different endings in the game, and you have to deal with the consequences of the decisions you made in different parts. Other things that I consider to play a major role in answering this video's question are the quantity and quality of the content of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This game is truly commendable in terms of the amount and variety of content of the highest quality, and it can make you surf the game for a long time, regardless of the hours and time, In the unique and very vast world of the game, kill monsters, play cards, become a detective, and do dozens of other activities. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt brings this beautiful and popular franchise to an incredible new level of content quality. Hundreds of hours of content with great stories and beautiful landscapes for exploring formed a mixture that few could resist, even those who didn't have the experience of role-playing games. It is interesting that the sub-missions of this game, in terms of story quality and diversity, are superior to the main missions of most excellent role-playing games. However, the reputable creator CD Projekt was not convinced, and this amount of content didn't stop them from creating a new experience for us in this beautiful world, and 16 free download packages and 2 incredible DLCs called Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. Witcher 3 was a game whose creators respected their audience so much that their regular game pack was like the special pack of other games. Witcher 3 was a game that, as I mentioned, its creators donated 16 DLCs for which other creators and publishers charge a lot of money. The Witcher 3 was the game that, when its creators decided to release DLC, would feature Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine with hours of new games, including new maps, missions, costumes, and more. They added to the game for $10 and $20, while other creators set the price for a couple of new clothes. These are the places where we appreciate The Witcher 3 and the geniuses of CD Projekt Red more than ever before, and we really have to admire them. In an era where multi-hour games don't give us the traction to finish and don't have quality content, titles like The Witcher 3 are like a brilliant and rare gem, and sometimes with more than 200 hours of gameplay and pure content, force us to finish again or triple. CD Projekt valued us so much that it didn't allow us to take our $60 for 6 hours of fully scripted experience and then constantly take extra money from us by offering every dress or smallest item, but rather 100 hours of pure pleasure with high repetition value and full of attractive choices. This is the power of creation and the power of choice. In fact, the builders took the hard road in exchange for a similar amount to other genre titles to fill us with the pleasure of playing and choosing and rewarding. One of the other points that makes The Witcher 3 masterpiece is that each version of the series, on all the good of the previous game and all the bad, has been removed. So when we got to the third version, we saw the highest possible quality and maturity of a game from the Witcher series. Each game of The Witcher was a full-fledged RPG at the time of its release, but with each new release, the series saw a world of progress and not only retained all the goodness of the previous game, but also increased several degrees. In fact, the weakest version of the series is the first game, and the best is the final DLC, Blood and Wine. Cannot be talked about The Witcher 3 and say nothing of its gameplay. I personally believe that after the story and the characters, the amazing quality of the gameplay of this game that distinguishes it from each title is also stylistic, and even raises the standards of free-world role-playing titles. So that a few years later, the title such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla is inspired by it. Gameplay of Witcher 3 full of different and varied fighting systems. It is easy to use and there are many complexities, many of which are taught by the game itself, but it is also your responsibility to learn many of them by trial and error. Use of different systems and tactics of campaigning. Especially in high levels of difficulty, they are vital. The Witcher 3 is a game that really has no flaws in terms of gameplay and means a super masterpiece. A game that you can't take a moment off, and not only will you remember and think about it for a while, but you won't forget this magic masterpiece for the rest of your life. And maybe go back and try it again from time to time, especially with 2 unique expansion packs released for the game, each of which may be more beautiful than the original game, and they had the size of a full game, gameplay, mission, and new items in it. As I've said before, it's better to be aware of the difficulty that the developers have put into this gameplay. Play the game with higher difficulty levels than normal to get a real taste of combat with different tactics and strategies, and find out that the fights in this game are much more than just a simple hack-and-slash game. Another obvious reason why The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is the quality of its creation, which is beyond amazing in terms of design and attention to detail. The world of this game is really alive, and it will drown you in it. Literally, The Witcher 3 is at a very high level in terms of artistic and graphic design, and when you walk with Geralt in the game environment, just pay attention to his costume and the details used in the design to understand the visual quality of the game. The designs of every detail in the game are at the height of beauty and quality. In such a game with a very large and vast world that makes these designs more valuable than ever before. As a result of all of the things I talked about in the video, if I wanted to give a more concise answer to the question, why is The Witcher 3 such a great masterpiece? It's because it's so perfect in every way. In fact, every part of the game we touch on is the fullest and highest quality effect possible, even in the smallest detail. The Witcher 3 is a game that, with its amazing power and quality, it has become the best game of my entire life. Although I have a lot of passion for Miyazaki's works, The Witcher 3 has forced its place as the greatest game in history in my heart and pushed my prejudice and made itself the #1. This game was oddly complete. The 8th generation is over, and it's been almost 9 years since the release of the game, but it's still not release a game like The Witcher 3. The 9th generation version of this game is also released, and rest assured that in this generation it will remain one of the top games. Speaking of this game, I don't want to mention anything about the privileges. As I've mentioned before, 93 is fairly low for The Witcher 3, and believe me, at least this game is a privilege to masterpieces like GTA 5 and Red Dead 2, 97. I really wish someone would say to these critics, well, what's really weaker in The Witcher 3 than in these titles? Actually, it's better in many ways. And to be honest, I think that's why we need to get a false 97 and fake objection lower the score, because if The Witcher 3 doesn't deserve 10, I don't know what game should be 10. What else does a game have to do? It is said that the score in Meta is due to some bugs at launch. But is there a title with this huge world that is completely technical when it comes out? All major games have problems at launch and are fixed with updates. What's even more important is that collisions with different games are not the same. Because if these bugs are for some games, they're forgiven and the score isn't reduced. But if they're for The Witcher 3, it's definitely going to be a low score. How can a title be so high in quality that there is no ban on even calling it the greatest video game in history? How do you make a game where a gamer, all of his previous passions and prejudices, takes it as the best game of his life? How can a title that a person who has never played a game in that genre before finishes it not just once, but many times and becomes fascinated with the same game of the genre? CD Projekt Red has the answer to these questions. Because by creating The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, they created a game that raised the standards of a genre and, even better, the standards of making a masterpiece game in the video game industry.